Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back at 25 minutes past 11 a.m. on this beautiful Saturday morning, the 1st of November. Goodbye, October, and November, here we come. It's a rainy season down here in Kampala, Uganda, and other parts of the country. So it's going to be a bit of chilly weekend of weather as we go through match day 10 and all the action that is to come your way from all around Europe and things in that regard. Good morning, Pedri. How are you doing? How is it going? I know, what time is it? Should be around, is it around 8:26? Is it? I stand to be corrected. So these time changes sometimes get me off. But I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing okay, my friends. I hope everything is going on well with you. For those of you that were part of last night's broadcast, thank you so much. It wasn't the best of the broadcast. It was because power went off midway the broadcast, internet went off, and then we had to figure out another way to continue and see out that broadcast. So, but thank you so much for all of you that managed to stay with us for the course. As we discussed all things Liverpool, we discussed Celtic, we talked about the best right back in the Premier League because somebody was of the view that Matty Cash from Aston Villa is the best right back in the Premier League. Then somebody made a bold statement that Brian Mbeumo is currently the best Premier League player, something to which I disagreed with, making a submission to the extent of mentioning names like Antoine Semenyo from AFC Bournemouth, names like Brad Erling Haaland from Manchester City, Gabriel Magalhaes from Arsenal, and a couple of other names. On the side of the best right back, in as far as Matty Cash being that person is concerned, I also disagreed on that front. My submission was to the extent that he isn't. That there are better names that I could mention, and among those names was Yuan Timber. I did go on to stress that if we had a fully fit, Ben White, he would be better. I hope Liverpool will lose today, and I want Slot to be sacked and Jurgen Klopp to come back to managing. I can see you have some wishful desires to that effect, but I do not know. Jurgen Klopp coming back to management. Well, I think all football lovers would love that for him to come back to management. He is such a good manager, but I do not think it's going to happen very soon. I do not think that even though Liverpool are in the sort of situation they are in, you quickly go and make the decision to sack Arne Slot, the manager who guided you to your second Premier League title in his, but also in his debut campaign, and then you've just backed him with all the resources that you've done, and then suddenly you go and sack him just because of a bad run of results. I mean, starting on that very front is, let's be honest, what's happening to Liverpool has happened to them before. It's not like it's the first time it's happened. It's not the first time this is happening. And that is the point I was stressing yesterday. What they are going through has happened to them before. It happened to them in the 2020-2021 Premier League season. For those of you that do remember, Liverpool were on the back of winning their first Premier League title in 30 years. That's what practically happened. How many games should Liverpool lose until Arne Slot gets sacked? Well, that's exactly the point. That's what we're going to be looking at. So stay with me here, Pedro, as I make this point or drive this point home. And I've seen your other comments about Brad Erling Haaland. We'll get to discuss that in a bit as well. So, my point is that we are talking about Liverpool, arguably the most successful club in English football, in my opinion. They are not the biggest club in terms of brand name. I think Manchester United are a bigger club. In terms, I could even stress that even Arsenal has a bigger brand in terms of name, in terms of global football, in terms of English football than Liverpool. But Liverpool are more successful than any other team within the Premier League. When you look at their European record, when you look at their league record, now, of course, people use the card of Liverpool only having 2 Premier League titles in the Premier League era that started in 1992 to try and say, yeah, they're not as big or they're not that successful. But if anything, I think because now we cannot sit here and say that just because Chelsea have what? 5 Premier League titles that are certainly more successful than Liverpool. We cannot say that just because Arsenal has 3 Premier League titles, they are suddenly better than Liverpool. No. So when you look at the larger context of things, both domestically and in Europe, I think Liverpool is the most successful club in English football. Now, with that said, of course, anything that happens to them is going to cause concern. It's going to be scrutinized. It's going to be debated at whatever front, at whatever forum. That chances upon people to debate that. Liverpool come on the backdrop of a season which wasn't, by the way, and allow me again make this. It may sound controversial, but I'll defend my opinion in this sense. I thought Liverpool were the best team last season, but were not an exceptional team. Now, you had a season where Manchester City fell off, Arsenal got with injuries and everything around them, so they could not hit whatever marks or whatever yardsticks they had set themselves in the 2 previous seasons. And then suddenly, Liverpool won the Premier League title on a tally of 84 points. Those 84 points in the last, I think, 5, 6, 7 years wouldn't have won a Premier League title. You know, that's how bad the season was in that sort of context. Now, again, let's go back to Jurgen Klopp, because Jurgen Klopp, I think, will go down as possibly the best Liverpool manager in modern football. When I say modern football, I'm talking about the period between 1990 and to date, you know. And like I said, they won the first Premier League title for the first time in 30 years, and that was under Jurgen Klopp in 2020. That was in itself on the backdrop of them winning their 6th UEFA Champions League title when they beat up against Tottenham Hotspur by 2-0. Divock Origi and Mohamed Salah scoring in that game in 2019. So Jurgen Klopp had built that team for success, and they achieved that. In 2019, they go on to win the Premier League title, the UEFA Champions League, and in the subsequent season, 2019-2020, they win the Premier League title. Guess what happened in the subsequent season, which was the 2020-2021 Premier League season. Along the way, during the course of that season, they fell off. When they won the Premier League title in 2020, they won the title with 18 points ahead of a second-place team that was Manchester City. So you can see how big a gap, how dominant Liverpool had been in that season. When you look at the tally of figures, they lost only 3 games, drew 3, and won 32 Premier League games. They managed a tally of 99 points, 1 point shy of Manchester City's record of 100 points in the 2017-2018 season. So that's how good Liverpool were, you know. And Man City finished second, United third. Now the subsequent season, 2020-2021, guess what? Liverpool finished third. They fell off the wagon. They finished third. And Manchester United came second to Man City who won the Premier League title. And winning that Premier League title with a tally, I think, of 86 points, 17 points ahead of Liverpool. Now, when I say that what is happening to Liverpool today is not new, and Pedro poses a very serious question, that how many games should Liverpool lose until Slot gets sacked? Now, to answer that question, I will take you back to the 2020-2021 Premier League season to show you that Jurgen Klopp himself, on the backdrop of winning the Premier League title, went on to lose as many as 6 games, 6 Premier League games, in 7 Premier League games, and he still wasn't sacked. Why? Because he had won them titles. He had built that squad. And in any case, that in itself, the team that we are making reference to from 2020 to 2021 season was arguably Liverpool's best, squad or team in modern football. Of course, Alson Ramsey-Speck in goal, prime Trent Alexander-Arnold, prime Trent Andy Robertson, Virgil van Dijk. I think it had what's the defender? The Cameroonian guy. His name eludes me. But you had Fabinho, Gini Wijnaldum, Jordan Henderson, you had Roberto Firmino, you had Sadio Mane, you had Mo Salah. That was Liverpool's electric team. And yet, in that season, between the month of February and March, they fell off the wagon. The only difference or stark difference that you will see in present day of what is happening to Liverpool is that we have certain changes in certain phases. We have a change of manager. It's Arne Slot, who is only in his second campaign with Liverpool, too. And somebody went on to argue that what is happening to Arne Slot is what had been expected to happen to him the previous campaign. So it's a change of manager. Now, Liverpool have added many players, as many as new players, 8 new players to their squad. Of course, we'll look at who the starters are in that realm. But let's go back to, and then the period within which it is happening. This time around, it's happened to Liverpool in the period between September, late September, and throughout October. The other time around, it happened to Liverpool in the month of February to the month of March. Let's look at the results, the run of results that they recorded in that period to show you why I'm making reference to that season of 2020-2021 to say that what is happening to Liverpool is not happening to them for the first time. Hi, already. Hello, my brother. Good to have you on the broadcast on this beautiful Saturday morning. So, when you go back to February 2021, on the 3rd of February, it was a Wednesday, Liverpool were at home against Brighton and Hove Albion. They lost that game by a goal to nil. Subsequent to that, on a Super Sunday, Liverpool lost to Manchester City by 4-1 at Anfield. They played away their next game, away to Leicester City, and lost that game by 3-1. That was on the Saturday, 13th February. That means they lost 3 consecutive Premier League games, 2 of those coming at Anfield. Now, in a similar manner, this time around, Liverpool lost 3 consecutive games. And again, listen to this, because there's some similarities, or so many similarities that you can pick up on. Liverpool lost 3 consecutive games, in as far as this season is concerned. They lost to Crystal Palace, and that was on the backdrop of beating up against Everton in the Merseyside derby. They lost to Crystal Palace, they lost to Chelsea, they lost away to Man United, So they lost at home against Manchester United. Brother, commentary, some cricket matches also. I'll speak to that in a bit. So now, 3 games they lost on the speed. And then, that same season, 2020-2021, they went away to Germany in the UEFA Champions League and beat up against RB Leipzig by 2-0. Guess what happened this time around? Also, they went away to Germany. After losing 3 consecutive Premier League games, they went and beat up against Eintracht Frankfurt by 5-1. I love you, brother from India. Thank you so much, Freddie. So, on the back of that victory against Eintracht Frankfurt, as the case had been on the backdrop of their victory against RB Leipzig in 2021, they returned at home at Anfield and lost to Everton by 2-0. This time around, they returned to the Premier League and played at the GTEC Stadium and lost by 3-2 against Brentford. So, in other words, they had lost 4 consecutive Premier League games. In between there, winning 1 Premier League match. Winning 1 UEFA Champions League match. And that is exactly what's happened to Liverpool in recent times. They lost 4 consecutive Premier League games. Then they won a UEFA Champions League match. Now, after losing to Everton, they went away to Sheffield United and won a game by 2-0. Guess who they are up against this weekend, which would have been their 5th consecutive defeat in the Premier League. They won. This time around, they are playing at home against Aston Villa. A lot of people have gone with a win for Liverpool. I've said this before and I will stress it again. They've not done anything in the last couple of games to convince me that they are even capable of winning a game of football. Later on, against an unformed Aston Villa, who haven't lost a Premier League game, I think, in the last 6. And when you look at the last 5, they're one of the most unformed teams. I think, starting with Arsenal, they've drawn 1 and won the other 4. So, after beating up against Sheffield United, that was the 28th February. On 4th March, they returned home to Anfield and lost to Liverpool by 1-0. So, in other words, they had lost 4 games out of 5 Premier League games. Does it end there? No, it did not end there. On the 7th of March, Liverpool at home at Anfield lost to Fulham by a goal to nil. That's what? 6 out of 7. They've only won against Sheffield United. They've lost all the other. They've lost all the other 6. Losing to Brighton, to Manchester City, to Leicester City, losing to Everton, and losing to Fulham and Chelsea. 6 games. Realist winning only against Sheffield United. So, to answer Pedro's question, how many games can they afford to lose before we start talking about sacking Arne Slot? Now, I'll put the ball in your court. As I've shown you with evidence, Liverpool lost 6 out of 7 games. And that Liverpool side had been literally exactly the same side that had won immaculately, flawlessly well, the Premier League title in the previous campaign. In this time round, because after losing to Fulham, after losing to Fulham, they went in the return leg and beat up against RB Leipzig by 2 goals to nil, and then went on to beat up against Wolverhampton Wanderers by goal to nil, beat up against Arsenal away at the Emirates Stadium by 3 goals to nil, and they were never the same. Then lost to Real Madrid by 3 goals to 1 at the Santiago Bernabeu, and eventually were knocked out of the UEFA Champions League because the subsequent fixture ended in a goalless draw. So Real Madrid advanced 3-1 on aggregate, but in between the 2 legs of Real Madrid in the UEFA Champions League, they beat up against Aston Villa by 2 goals to 1. And then after that, they shared the spoils with Leeds United in a 1-1 draw, and then with Newcastle in a 1-1 draw, beat up against Southampton by 2 goals to nil, beat up against United at Old Trafford by 4 goals to 2, beat up against West Bromwich Albion by 2 goals to 1. And then beat up against Burnley and Crystal Palace to wrap up their season by 3 goals to nil and 2 goals to nil respectively. So that was how Liverpool looked in the 2020-2021 Premier League season, on the backdrop of them winning a Premier League title the previous year or the previous campaign. So this time around, you have Arne Slot, who is only in his 2nd season. At the time when that happened to Liverpool, I think Jurgen Klopp was in his 7th season with Liverpool, or in his 7th year. Stark difference. 2, Arne Slot has had an addition of a plethora of players, and not just players, because majority of the players he's added to the squad are first-team players. Alexander Isak, Hugo Ekitike, Florian Wirtz, Jeremy Frimpong, Milos Kerkez, 5 players of the 8 that they signed are team starters. Reason being, they lost Trent Alexander-Arnold, they sold off Darwin Núñez, they lost Luis Diaz, they've struggled with injuries for Ryan Gravenberch, and then they've had an injury to Anson Ramsey-Becker. So Gigi Mamadashvili has had to start many of these games that they've lost. Of course, I think the injury came in the aftermath of, was it the Crystal Palace game, which they lost by 2 goals to 1. So you can see that Arne Slot is had one too many changes in this squad, changes for players, some of whom did not have a decent preseason, players with whom had to adapt to English football, like Ekitike, like Florian Wirtz, like Jeremy Frimpong. Those have had to adapt. Mamadashvili inclusive. Then Milos Kerkez has to adapt to a new team. He doesn't need to adapt to the Premier League. He's already played that, So there's been one too many changes. Then another point I want to stress is the significant loss of Diego Jota. We can never, psychologically, at a personal level, we can never know what grief does to a person. We can imagine it. Having gone through grief ourselves, we can draw a seamless. But until you walk in a man's shoes, do not judge him. That's why I've been very lenient and in disagreement as well for those who are heaping blame on Mohamed Salah. because it's been reported, and widely so, that he was one of the people that were close to Diego Jota. So the loss of Diego Jota has not helped Liverpool's cause. The change in Arne Slot's playing style, or how he wants them to go about the game, how they leave that midfield sort of literally empty with just one man standing there, has not helped their cause. Given that the likes of Ibrahim Konate have fallen far off form, and during the same period, the likes of Virgil van Dijk has not helped Liverpool's cause. The lack of form for players like Mo Salah, for players like the slow start for Milos Kerkez, the injuries suffered to players like Jeremy Frimpong, because he's been in and out of the team, and as we speak, he's said to be out for a period of 6 weeks through injury. So all those factors cannot be really, really underestimated, you know. So Liverpool have been here before. They have steered the storm. They have managed to walk through it and put and come back out of it, because after the 2020-2021 Premier League season, the subsequent season, which was the 2021-2022 Premier League season, Liverpool finished second on the Premier League log, just a point behind the eventual champions, Manchester City. They had 92 points. Manchester City had 93 points. That was the second time it was happening for Liverpool to finish just a point behind Manchester City. In any other given season, the 97 points, because the other time was in 2018-2019 when they finished with 97 points. In any other season, those 92 points, those 97 points would have won Liverpool a Premier League title. Unfortunately, it wasn't the case. So, to answer Pedro's very, very significant question is of how many games do Liverpool need to lose for them to sack Arne Slot? I would say, given that they've been at this stage before, given that they've been through this before, in the 2020-2021 Premier League season, I think it will take more than just 4 games. It will take perhaps more than just 5 games that they have lost, that they would have lost on the trot in the Premier League. Like I said, their form is nowhere near good enough. They've lost 6 games out of the last 7 in all competitions. They've lost 4 consecutive games in the Premier League. They've lost 1 in the UEFA Champions League against Galatasaray. They've lost 1 in the Carabao Cup against Crystal Palace by 3-0 just this week on Wednesday. And then that's the 6 defeats, and the only victory coming against Eintracht Frankfurt in the UEFA Champions League. So when you look at that in that sense, then you will know what we are talking about. We will know that Liverpool will look on it and say, because again, when we go back to that very season, do not forget that while they managed to beat up against RB Leipzig, home and away by 2-0 in either fixture, they went to the Santiago Bernabeu and lost by 3-1. So there was another loss in there. So, and Arne Slot yesterday spoke confidently about his own abilities, and he did say not that we should take his word for gospel truth, but he did say he's trusting the process and the system and everything they're doing to get back to winning ways. You know, no excuses. Of course, during the course of midweek, he made himself an excuse that did not help his cause. When he went on to draw comparison to Manchester City starting 11 against Swansea in the EFL Cup to compare himself, and everybody was saying, no, nobody is going to be on your side. You did spend nearly £450 million in the course of the summer. You do not come here and talk about squad depth. You do not get to come here and moan about squad depth, because it was your decisions that got your club spending that much, but perhaps not spreading those resources well enough. At least I could make that argument to that effect. Although it wasn't the net spend, but it was the overall spend, you know. So no sympathies for Arne Slot on that regard. So Pedro, who is wondering what it will take, I think it will take more than just the 4 consecutive defeats. It will take more than the 5 consecutive defeats if they were to lose to Aston Villa for us to know whether, or to see whether Arne Slot will be shown the exit at Liverpool. In any case, Liverpool can be very, very patient with managers. You remember they had to be patient with Jurgen Klopp when he had just walked through the doors back in 2015. You remember he joined the club in October 2015 following the sacking of Brandon Rodgers. And to say that he did not have the greatest of starts to his Liverpool career would be an understatement, because in his first campaign, they finished fourth with a tally of 76 points. That was the past full campaign, 2016-2017. They finished fourth on the Premier League table standings. So it had to be a gradual process. And during that, during that very season, Liverpool lost 6 games. They drew 10 games. Now, of course, when you compare it to what is happening this season, it is simple to argue that this season looks worse. It's simple to argue that. But also, even in the subsequent season, they still finished fourth with 12 draws, 5 losses. So I think Liverpool minders will be quite very patient with Arne Slot, unless it goes so bad that he literally plays himself into losing his job. The same way perhaps Nuno Espirito Santo talked himself into losing his job at Nottingham Forest. So that's where I will leave it at that, as far as the Liverpool debate is concerned. I want to go back to the attention. So I think that wraps up, the debate on how many games Arne Slot will lose before he gets shown the exit, and you hope that he actually lose and we'll get to see Jurgen Klopp back in action. Pedro also went on to say, I think Haaland is the best Premier League, is the best player in the Premier League than Gabriel Magalhaes and then Semenyo. For you, you're ranking them as Brad Erling Haaland, Gabriel Magalhaes, Antoine Semenyo, and then whoever else, somebody else would add. I wouldn't disagree much with you, because Brad Erling Haaland has been literally carrying Manchester City on his shoulders so far this season. He has a tally of about 11 goals in 9 games in the Premier League. So including braces against Burnley, against Everton, scored that goal that won the game against Brentford. Also scored the only goal in the 1-1 draw against Arsenal, and scored a brace against Man United. So he's been that integral player. When you look at the position that Manchester City are in on the Premier League log, to be as high as they are currently or present day, which is fourth on the Premier League log, fifth on the Premier League log with 16 points, is integral to that. But for me, I think I'll go with Anton Semenyo to be ahead of Brad Erling Haaland, because we are talking about a player who is equally having significant impact on his team as AFC Bournemouth, and they are currently second on the Premier League log. Yes, and they've only lost 1 game this season, and that was the opening game of the season against Liverpool, which they lost by 4 goals to 2. Ever since then, they've not looked back. They've had 3 draws in between there. They've had their 5 victories. So for me, I would put Anton Semenyo, Brad Erling Haaland, and maybe Gabriel Magalhaes. Another person would rearrange them in a different order, but at least we can all agree that those are the best 3 players in the Premier League at the moment, or as things stand. Then to go to the comments of Reddy. Reddy said, hello, brother, commentary some cricket matches. Also, I love you, brother, from India. Now, Reddy, allow me, acknowledge this. Cricket is not my best forte. My knowledge about cricket is as little as the size of a chicken in spring. Yes, as much as I love sports all round, my knowledge about cricket is very, very minimal. So I do not want to sit here and lie to you and mumble through, our cricket. I pick on a few things here and there. The fact that England, literally rubbish on the idea of having Ben Stock and things like that. I know that teams like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, South Africa, West Indies, Sri Lanka, England, some of the best cricket teams that there is around the world. I know for a fact that my own country, Uganda, does, love cricket. They do play cricket. We've seen the cricket cranes on numerous occasions. But I do not want to lie to you beyond those basics that I know the ins and outs of cricket, the way I would sit here and talk about football. So indulge me. And I've always said this, that I always appreciate uh, our Indian community because the Indian community is a cricket loving community overall. That's the best game. That's what they love most. But somehow they've done me the absolute honor and favor of supporting this channel, and yet it's predominantly football. It's not football entirely, you know. So yeah, indulge me on that one. Anyways, so that's the debate. I've already given you my predictions. For those of you that missed them, I'll go back to Friday morning's live broadcast. You will find my predictions for the Premier League for match 10. But okay, maybe just to give you a recap. But before I give you a recap of what those predictions are, allow me give you a recap of what fixtures are to come your way in as far as the Premier League is concerned this weekend. So, like I said, there are no early kickoffs. All games kick off at 6 p.m. East African time, and we will have 5 games being played at that time, with Arsenal playing away to with Arsenal playing away to Burnley. Manchester United will be away to Nottingham Forest, while Brighton and Hove Albion will be at home against Leeds United. Crystal Palace will entertain Brentford. Fulham will be at home against Wolverhampton Wanderers, while to complete the 6 p.m. kickoffs. And then at 8:30 p.m. East African time, Tottenham Hotspur will be at home against Chelsea, while later at 11 p.m. Liverpool will take on Aston Villa. On Super Sunday, we'll only have 2 games involving West Ham United against Newcastle, while Manchester City will be up against Bournemouth at 7:30 p.m. And then on Monday Night Football, we will have Sunderland up against Everton. Those are the fixtures that will be coming your way on match day 10 of the Premier League. Excuse me. So that's the run of fixtures. To give you a recap on my prediction for all those fixtures, Nottingham Forest versus Man United, I've gone 2-1 Manchester United. Burnley against Arsenal, I've gone 2-0 Arsenal. Brighton versus Leeds, I've gone 2-1 Brighton. Crystal Palace Brentford, I've gone for a 2-2 draw. Fulham versus Wolves, I've gone 3-1 Fulham. Spurs versus Chelsea, Tottenham versus Chelsea, I've gone for a 2-2 draw. Liverpool Aston Villa, I've gone for Aston Villa to win 2-1. West Ham versus Newcastle, I've gone for Newcastle to win 3-1. Manchester City Bournemouth, I've gone for Man City to win 1-0. Sunderland Everton, I've gone for a 1-1 draw. Those are my predictions for match day 10 of the Premier League. So do let me know still down in the comment section whether you do agree with me or you disagree with those predictions in as far as what's to come your way is concerned. But let's run away from the Premier League and see what is on the menu for the Spanish La Liga. At 4 p.m., Villarreal will be up against Rayo Vallecano, while at 6:15 p.m., we'll have Atletico de Madrid up against Sevilla. Real Betis at 8:30 p.m. Real Sociedad at 8:30 p.m. will be up against Athletic Bilbao, while Real Madrid at 11 p.m. will be up against Valencia. There in the Spanish La Liga. In the German Bundesliga, still on Saturday, Heidenheim will be up against Eintracht Frankfurt. Mainz will take on Werder Bremen. RB Leipzig will be up against VfB Stuttgart, while St. Pauli will take on Borussia Mönchengladbach. Union Berlin will be up against Freiburg, while Bayern Munich at 8:30 p.m. will be up against Bayer Leverkusen. And in the Italian Serie A, we have a very, very interesting game that I think if you can afford to find the time, please go watch it. That game will be between Napoli and Como at 8 p.m. while at 5 p.m. Udinese will be up against Atalanta, and then later at 10:45 p.m. Cremonese will welcome Juventus as Luciano Spalletti takes charge of Juventus for the first time following his appointment as new Juventus manager for the period until June 2026, with an option to extend it for further years should they qualify for UEFA Champions League, or depending on how things go this season. In the French League One, PSG will be up home against Nice. That's at Parc des Princes, while AC Monaco will take on Paris FC. Auxerre will be up against Olympique Marseille. That's to complete your action on Saturday. And then on Super Sunday, to come your way in the Spanish La Liga, Levante will be up against Celta Vigo. That's at 4 p.m., while at 6:15 p.m., Deportivo Alves will be up against Espanyol, and at 8:30 p.m. we'll have Barcelona take on Elche. Real Betis will be up against Real Mallorca at 11 p.m. In the German Bundesliga, Cologne will take on Hamburg SV, while Wolfsburg will take on Hoffenheim. In the Italian Serie A, on Sunday, Hellas Verona will be up against Inter Milan. Fiorentina will take on Lecce. Torino will take on Pisa. Parma will take on Bologna. And then AC Milan will take on AC Roma at 10:45 p.m. In the French League One, I will have Stade Rennes take on Strasbourg. Strasbourg, one of the most interesting teams in the French League One. Then Lens will be up against Lorient. Lille will be up against Angers. Nantes will take on Métis. Toulouse will be up against Le Havre, and then Brest will take on Lyon. There to complete the fixtures that will be coming your way in as far as this weekend is concerned for the different leagues, top 5 leagues across Europe. But on Monday, like I told you, Sunderland up against Everton, but in the Spanish La Liga, Real Oviedo will be up against Osasuna. In the Italian Serie A, Lazio will be up against Cagliari, while earlier on we'll have Sassuolo up against Genoa, and then on the same day we'll have an English FA Cup game between Tamworth and Leyton Orient. So do not miss out on all that action that will be coming your way throughout the course of the weekend, going to as far as Monday. So very, very interesting action that is coming your way. So keep your eyes glued to your screens. Keep your eyes glued to the Football Tribe YouTube channel. I'll be bringing you those results. We'll be discussing some of those results. The impact of those results on the table, on the managers, on the teams overall, and on their seasons in entirety, in reference to the kinds of predictions that we made. When we look at the predictions that we made at the start of the season, some are close, others are far from it. But yeah, the season is still young. We're only entering match day 10. That means there's a whole whooping 28 games still left to play. Until the season reaches the 28th game mark, which means that there's left about 10 games. Anything can still happen. It is still taken as still young. So there's still everything to play for and everything to lose at this point in the season. So, but before we even look to other matters, I want to say thank you so much to all our new subscribers. Welcome to the Football Tribe UG community. It's a pleasure to have you around. I hope you do like what we do. I hope you can spare some time to check out under the comment, the video section, the live section, short section, and watch all that content. For all of you that watch our live broadcasts long after they've ended, we do not take your time, your love and support for granted. Anyways, yeah. So thank you so much for those of you that have done us that kind favor. Anyways, so yeah, give me your predictions down in the comment section. Do let me know who you think will win. Who do you think are there any giants that will fall this weekend? Because in the previous weekends we've seen giants fall. Of course, Liverpool have been on the falling side for the last 4 consecutive games. So you could argue that anything can happen. With Liverpool. Then we saw Chelsea for last weekend. We saw Manchester City for last weekend. So are we going to see a continuation of those trends, or are we going to see a change of things? I suspect Arsenal will be wearing their white kit, which is their away kit. As Bayern Munich take on Bayer Leverkusen this weekend, might I remind you that Bayern Munich are unbeaten in 14 games across all competitions to the start of this season. So, I mean, it's just impressive. It's just impressive. But we know it's also not a huge surprise that Bayern Munich are this dominant in the German Bundesliga. They've been that for I do not know how many years now. Because when you go back, I think in the last almost let me see, almost 20 odd years, I think you'll find, and I stand to be corrected, you'll find only two teams have won the Bundesliga. I think, other than Bayern Munich, in the last 20 years. I think that's what you'll experience. I think in that period, because if we go back to, I want us to go back to as let's go back to 2000. We're in 2005. Sorry, 2025. So I think you'll find that there are others, but you'll find I think about 4 or 5 teams other than Bayern Munich that have won the title in the last 20 years, and that will tell you about Bayern Munich's dominance. In between that period, you have twice when Dortmund won it, in 2011 and in 2012 under Jurgen Klopp. Then ever since then, no team won it until 2024 when Bayer Leverkusen won it. Then when you go back to the period starting from 2005, you find that Bayern Munich won it. 2006 Bayern Munich won it. 2007 VfB Stuttgart won it. 2008 Bayern Munich won it. 2009 Wolfsburg won it. And then it's a whole dominance of Bayern Munich. So I think it doesn't surprise any of us to see that Bayern Munich are that dominant at present day. Maybe what stands out is the credit that ought to go to Vincent Kompany as a manager, coming on from the Premier League, where he had gotten Burnley relegated and was destined to manage them in the Championship for the second season. I do not think a lot of people thought he would be this remarkable. But yeah, he turned out to be okay, and not so far back he did put pen to paper on a 2-year contract extension. So yeah, I did say we were speaking, I think, earlier on this season among the teams that are favorites, perhaps to win the UEFA Champions League title. And I mentioned Liverpool. I mentioned Bayern Munich, that they're always going to be one of the favorites. Last season they got knocked out at the quarterfinals at the hands of Inter Milan. So I mentioned Bayern Munich, I mentioned Barcelona, Real Madrid always in the conversation, PSG always are going to be in that conversation, not always, but are going to be in that conversation. I think I added Arsenal. But others, we'll see. We'll see if we have anything other than that to surprise us. But it's been a pleasure doing this with you. It's already midday here in Kampala, Uganda. Let me let you go to your, weekend routines. So yeah, allow me to wish you the very best of a wonderful weekend. I'll see you guys next time. Stay blessed for now. Bye-bye.